two, one. All right, so avoiding the most costly evaluation mistake as a student. What is the most costly one? Well, just getting a zero completely. And it's for reasons which can and are in your control. And that zero typically happens for students who completely miss an evaluation, don't submit it, especially now in the online world of kind of education, where a lot of the things are given a particular due date. You have a certain amount of time to do it, a window, maybe a week or 2 weeks. And then you push it back towards the last day or two. Something happens, right, within that last day or two. Maybe it's health reasons, maybe it's family emergencies, could be even, death within the family, could be your computer shutting down, your Wi-Fi giving out, power giving out, okay, in the house, your sister, brothers, something happens, anything, any excuse imaginable. And that forces you not to be able to submit or do that particular evaluation. So in all of those instances, how do you avoid missing that evaluation entirely? All right. So that's what I want to talk about in this particular video, and then give a warning to students and kind of a plan of heads up what to do. And now I will make the assumption that whatever evaluation you have, so if it's an assignment, project, a test, exam, doesn't matter. It is open for a certain amount of time, okay? So for a few days, for a week, or for 2 weeks, whatever, okay? So let's imagine that you have something which opens up, and it doesn't matter what month this is or anything like that. But let's say it opens up here, okay, on the 2nd of whatever month that might be, say on a Thursday. And then your teachers have given you kind of a window, okay, where it continues on and it's open, meaning that you can submit or do this, okay, assignment or test or general evaluation, for a certain amount of days. Okay, so let's say, so this is, let's make it 2 weeks. All right, so that it closes on the Thursday, and this would have been the 16th of something. Okay, so it closes here. And now you have all of these days. Now, what happens as a student? Well, you have a lot of different courses possibly. You have work, you have maybe commitments, extracurriculars, sports, family, friends, whatever. And most of the time, what will happen is, if something is open for this much, from my experience, close to 90% of people will finish it typically on the last day or last 2 days, which is the cause of the biggest mistake, right? Procrastinating and moving it forward, okay? Continuously pushing it back. And I call this, okay, so if you make this choice, and let's say, you try to complete it, okay, within these last 2 days, you've now put yourself kind of in a shooting red zone, where if something goes wrong and you do have an emergency, you don't have any margin of safety to try to communicate with your teachers or professors or instructors. Let them know so that they can try to help you, right? The assumption always is that if something happens, let's say, you come to this day, last day, and, I don't know, your computer shuts down, or maybe your Wi-Fi, or maybe it's something more serious, health related or family related or something, and then you reach out to the instructors and you say, what, I can't actually do it. Can I get an extension? So in my opinion, is you shouldn't get an extension, because you've left it towards the last minute, and you were not accountable for having kind of a successful plan of avoiding not doing it. So my first question would have been, why did you leave it for last minute, right? And my idea typically is that if someone chooses to push it towards the last minute, okay, and pushes it back, then they should be accountable for that action. So if something happens on those days, you as a teacher or instructor may not be able to help them, and then, well, I guess they will miss it. right? Now, sometimes the policies within the course will still allow that student to have a makeup, and that's fine, okay? But sometimes policies might say that there are no makeups. Let's say maybe it's a smaller assignment or assignments that are continuous or projects, and then you just don't get any makeups, all right? So the idea is you don't want to leave it for those last 2 days. And if you do, you should be accountable for that action. Because everybody always thinks when they leave it towards the last minute, because it hasn't happened to them in the past, right? That nothing has gone wrong and they've always been able to submit everything and kind of went nice. My idea is that it always happens to somebody, and assume that it will be you. So assume that things will go wrong. And if you knew that things would go wrong, you would have done them a little bit earlier. And that's my suggestion. That's how you avoid this biggest mistake of getting a 0. All right? So if you're going to do, these assignments or tests or anything, just do them. If your teachers tell you that your due date, let's say, was the 16th, well, assume that the due date is actually the 14th, right? And if you do it that way and something goes wrong in that window, which is a couple days before the due date, then you have time, and I call this time the margin of safety. Okay, so you have a margin, you have a certain amount of time, kind of borrow that term from investing, this margin of safety from Warren Buffett I heard first, and it was, I think, Benjamin Graham who pointed it out for investing, because we don't know what can happen. But this gives you time to communicate. And if something does go wrong, now you can communicate, okay? Okay, so you can communicate with your teachers or instructors or professors and let them know, this has happened, what should I do? Okay? And, those teachers or instructors now will see like, okay, someone was proactive, they're trying to be able to finish, and that teacher now still has time to try to see if they can adjust something or change something before the deadline so that you can do. Or in the minimum, they can communicate with you and let you know exactly what process to take. So avoiding the biggest and most costly mistake is time management. And when something is open for longer than just a day or two or something like that, your goal is to try to do it a couple days before the deadline so that you leave yourself this margin of safety of time, okay, in case something does go wrong. And assume that it will. If it doesn't, you're in the clear. You didn't lose anything. You were actually finished a little bit earlier. And if you want to try, you can kind of be a little bit less stressed out so that you can try some other stuff. So if nothing goes wrong, great. But if it does, at least you have a cushion to land on and time period to communicate with your teachers. And I hope if there are teachers and professors or anybody watching this, that you also try to teach your students to have these really good time management and put your students to be accountable for their success. So if they email you on the last day and say, hey, you know what, something happened, I can't do it, please give me an extension. Well, there might be late policies, so they might say, okay, you can do it, but you're going to get a late penalty. But if there are no late penalties and the thing just closes and there's no extensions, then you as a teacher should stick to basically abiding to that policy and say, no, unfortunately, I can't help you now because the deadline is now close by and I don't have any time to try to assist. Okay? And that's not being mean, right? Because sometimes students might think, well, then that teacher is actually mean. They're not, trying, they don't have empathy. Okay? No, what they're trying to teach you is so that you are now accountable for your actions and for your success, and long-term success for yourself as a student. And if you leave it towards last minute all the time, eventually something will go wrong. All right? So that's what I wanted to pass on in this video, okay? Just so that students are aware, don't do it, don't push it towards last minute, because eventually you might burn that candle off, okay? And then you'll end up with a 0, all right? Okay, thanks for watching. Happy studying, everybody. Cheers.